What's happening, fandoms? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here,
we react to music videos and shows.
Today we're going back to check out our good friend Will over at the Pixelists, because he released a while back. We're having to catch up on these. Episode 5 of his season 2 breakdowns of the Easter eggs and details we missed in the Legends of Vox Machina show. We're really enjoying these. Even me, as a longtime critter, I learned things from these. And
I'm still learning.
She's a brand new critter and doesn't really know much, and so she's really learning a lot about the world from these videos.
Yes.
So we're really enjoying you guys following along with us here. Let's dive into it. Take it away, Will.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pixelists. I'm Will, and today we're going to keep the breakdowns rolling with episode 5 of the Legend of Vox Machina season 2. I've been doing breakdowns for every episode this season, so if you haven't seen those yet, definitely hit the channel and check those out. But if this is your first one, let me give a quick spoiler warning. If you have not seen the original campaign that this show is based on, aspects of this breakdown could spoil parts of the show. That being said, I will try to walk the line of explaining things without explicitly spoiling stuff. And if I do tread into explicit spoiler territory, I will throw up a threat level midnight sign. And all that means is that if you don't want it to be spoiled, mute until that sign goes away. With that being said, let's get into it. The episode opens on this gorgeous shot of Zephyra, which is the home of the Ashari, aka Keylith. And in this flashback, we actually get to see a young Keylith and her mother, Vilya. Now, Vilya is actually heading out on her Oramente, which is the same thing Keylith is supposed to be doing in the present. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what that is, to put it simply, it is a quest that potential leaders of the tribe must embark on in order to master all 4 elements. And to do that, they must travel to all 4 tribes of Ashari across Exandria and essentially gain their blessing. So once they have done that and mastered all of the elements, they can return home and they are fit to lead. So here we have Vilya setting off on that. But we can see just how powerful she is, because even before completing the Oramente, she displays a great grasp of all 4 of the elements. And you might be saying to yourself, this is very Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yes,
it is.
And you would be right, because Keylith has cited that Avatar is a massive inspiration for her character. And she has not been shy about how much she loves Korra as well. And the fun Easter egg here is that Janet Varney is actually the one playing Keylith's mother, Vilya. And Janet was also the one who voiced Korra. So that was just a really fun casting. And I'm sure an incredible full circle moment for Keylith.
Yes, for Marisha. It's really easy to mix them up in your heads when you've watched the main campaign. They become interchangeable.
Exactly.
It's really bizarre. We actually are working our way through the Avatar: The Last Airbender season 2 right now.
Yeah.
And once we're finished with that, we will move on to Korra. So if
if
you enjoy the Avatar anime, you can check out our playlist of Avatar reactions, and we're more than halfway through season 2 already. So yes, I second this. Marisha, the player of Keylith, is a very big Avatar fan, and in many interviews and questions, she has cited Avatar as the main inspiration for her character design. So for all the people finding these correlations, they're intentional.
Yes.
They are 100% on purpose.
Also in this scene, we have Keylith's father, Corin, played by Fred Tatasciore. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And he was also in Avatar, just as some smaller characters. But I do think he kind of looks like Uncle Iroh here.
Yes, he does.
A little bit.
That to be the case. But anyway, this scene is just a great little opening vignette, which they've been doing a lot of this season. And, you know, it comes back to play a little bit later with Keylith's mother's words coming back to, you know, help her in her time of need. And one final little Easter egg in this scene is that the young Keylith is actually played by Sam Riegel's daughter. So it's funny to see them keep popping up. They're going to be the most tenured voice actors by the time this show's done.
Yeah.
Back in the present, we have Vox Machina setting up camp for the night. And this is just iconic D&D. You know, when you're not near a town and you're out on the road and you got to sleep for the night, you got to set up camp. And, you know, some people actually set up the physical camp like we have Vax and Percy doing here, while other people go collect firewood and, you know, maybe food for the night like, you know, Pike and Keylith are doing. So just love to see this. And another aspect of this scene, this isn't really threat level midnight at all, but I'm going to throw it up there. So mute if you don't want to know a part of this season that's going to happen. But Vex is clearly being set up to look like a witch in this shot with her piece of wood that she's holding looking suspiciously like a wand. And of course, the broom is in the shot as well. Now, if you'll recall, if you saw the campaign, or if you're still just listening because you don't care about spoilers, the favor that Vex ends up owing Scanlan for him, you know, giving her the magic word for the broom, ends up being that he buys her a hat and he wants her to wear it, and it's a witch's hat. So I think this is just kind of setting up for that, because with the wand, the broom, the hat that's coming, you know, he's just setting her up to be a witch. So I thought this was fun. And speaking of the broom, in this scene is the first one where Vex looks at it and sees the magic words. Now, these are obviously not literally letters, but they look suspiciously like gurns on the second half of it, which if you caught my earlier breakdowns, then you know that Gurn Blanston is the name of a character from the original campaign, a guest character played by Chris Hardwick. And his character Gurn was the original one that had this magical broom, and Vex ended up stealing it from him in the campaign. In the show, he's clearly not going to be in it. They got the broom from Gilmore's. But I have to think with how closely that resembles GERN, that this has to be a subtle nod to that. So that's fun. Next
It's
up, we
still
have an
Gurn's
iconic
broom
scene from the original campaign, and that is Grog, Scanlan, and the outhouse. Now, there's no outhouse in the show, but this is indeed the scene. And I'm so glad they included this, because this is a moment they had to include. It was so good in the original campaign. But, and don't get me wrong, the song Scanlan sings here that we get to hear more of during the credits is amazing. What can this man not do?
Right.
But honestly, the scene does not do the original campaign justice. So, of course, I'm going to be sharing that here. I'll see you in a little bit.
I got all nervous when they mentioned a Goliath cave, so I kind of need to go boom boom.
Should I play a song so no one can hear it?
Might help, like standing guard outside the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little music.
Would you mind?
That's what I'm here for.
Can I go drop some ordnance?
And as you find, one of the few local kind of ramshackle outhouses, none are quite Goliath size, and it's an uncomfortable experience. But thank God you brought a bard along, or you would have woken up half the populace just going to bed. As Scanlan,
Nothing to see here, everybody.
Oh, no guitar. This is different.
Nothing to see here.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
No.
The music's playing, right? Yeah. It's just like a stall, just me.
yeah,
All right, can I take out Craven Edge?
yeah.
All right.
In the office. Sorry, keep going.
Keep in mind how tight.
It's the palace. This is where all the best thoughts and conversations happen. I don't know how it is at your house.
Keep in mind how confined it is, okay?
Yeah.
And go.
I don't even know.
Sounds like a rough one in there, buddy.
As you see one of the wood boards splinter out the side for a second.
Yep, that's tacos.
Oh, that's a big cup that he's drinking. Holy moly.
You might want to play a bit louder and maybe take a few steps away. It's about to get violent.
No problem.
At that moment, you focus in as you can feel the blade itself go cold in your fingertips. You can see what little bit of light that filters through the bright orangish red color that's coming from the sunset. You can see a reflection in the obsidian blade as a voice comes to your ear and says, "You fed me well."
Yeah, right, I did, right? I mean, we are really doing well. Question. So, when we were fighting that big Earthbreaker Groot-looking guy, he called you a dark weapon. Do you have feelings, and did that hurt them?
There's a brief pause before you hear this long, drawn-out.
Right, hold on. No, listen. Oh, and I take my thumb and I run it against the blade real quick.
Okay. As you do, all of a sudden the voice goes.
Right, yep, sorry. Listen, so my question is, as much as I love opening up people to feed you, I kind of want to know, like, what's in it for you?
Grog, are you talking to your shit?
Yeah, no, you gotta let it know who's boss.
Voice creeps in again this time. There is no feeling more terrifying than hunger, and I hunger forever. You help satiate that hunger. That is our arrangement. I give you the strength of those you cut down, and I feed upon them. If this is unsatisfactory, I can and have found others who are more willing to be part of this arrangement.
No, I'm a big fan, really. I mean, I am yoked out when I'm using you. It's fucking amazing. I mean, people are flying apart. It's like a dream. But listen, can you ever be full?
I've never been full before. Perhaps you're the one to find out.
I bet I am, actually. You're really lucky you found me. A lot of these other blokes, not even half the man I am. But listen, so there's no, like, end game. Just to be clear, you just want to drink and drink. Because I've seen the blood, right? And usually I wipe it off, but you, like, suck it in. And that's a little unsettling, I'm not gonna lie.
My hunger grows, but the air tarnishes my blade. Perhaps we can continue this conversation elsewhere.
Right, yeah. Well, look, I like the way you cut people open, so we'll continue this another time. And I'll sheath him.
As you sheath it, the last thing it says is, "Don't forget, I hunger always."
Yeah. So.
Wow, that's a longer play.
Yeah.
Than the one that they had on the show.
Yeah, they have to do all sorts of editing, but as you could see, most of the lines in the show came straight from Travis himself.
Yeah.
Right. Most of the things that they actually kept were things he actually said, or things Matt actually said.
So Matt played the voice for the sword as well.
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember. I think he's the voice of Craven Edge. Yeah. But you asked about Sam's mug.
Yeah.
And the reason that he does that, and it's a bit of a joke, is because he's supposed to be a gnome. Oh. And so everybody else uses a normal cup, but he uses this gigantic one to make it look like he's smaller than everybody else.
Gotcha,
and the funny thing is, it really, really works. People think he's short, but he's one of the tallest people on the cast. He's like 6'3" or something like that.
Besides
Travis is taller, I think. But yeah. Sam is one of the tallest members of the cast, and everybody thinks he's short because he's always played short characters. Yeah. And he has these gimmicks where he does this with these giant drinking things.
That's so
to make himself look small.
I kick the door open. I'm like, if you're within 200 feet, back up!
No one's out here, bro.
Oh.
Just me. Are you alright?
Yeah.
I heard you say something about blood.
Yeah, no, in my sweating, it was like a real workout, that one.
At some point you said, are you full? Are you talking about, did you fill it all the way up?
The privy, it was starting to give me bum a tickle.
Wow.
Yeah.
You topped it off.
Yeah, because you don't want to dip in the muck. It's
Foul.
Not at all.
Yeah. Did you want to?
I think I'm good.
Are you sure?
I think I'm
Percy can't even keep his.
Ready to go.
I keep calling him Percy. His face straight.
Taliesin.
Taliesin.
Fair enough. Well, I'm feeling so vacated?
We should go get a bite.
I think you're right.
Hopefully that hits the same for people that didn't watch the campaign, because I know that was a little long, but such a good moment.
They're really
anyway,
funny.
Moving on back to reality, we've got Vax keeping watch as everyone else goes to sleep. Now, I mentioned this in an earlier breakdown, so I'm not going to fully go over it again here, but just iconic D&D stuff. Now, during this watch, he has another encounter and vision with the Raven Queen. Now, just a reminder,
Right.
these visions did not happen in the original campaign.
Right.
So they are exploring this relationship much deeper than they did in the campaign. So this is really interesting. And we get some shots of, the destruction that the dragons caused, which, just lots and lots of death, which the Matron of Ravens is the god of death. So what's interesting here is we get this door, and this is just amazing. Like, Titmouse, hats off to you. But the thing that it reminded me of was the door from Full Metal Alchemist, which like half the cast of Critical Role had a hand in. So I'm wondering if it was inspired by this. And I wonder if there's kind of a similar thematic, essence behind it, in that this door is kind of the door to knowledge in a way. And this shot is cool because you can see all the threads of fate kind of interwoven behind it. So I feel like this door is opening to, again, knowledge, or this new reality that Vax is having to accept, that he is kind of leaving behind existence in the way his mortal mind understands it. And as he opens the door, he once again sees the skeletal version of himself, and then several other ghastly figures. So I think this is, let me get my literary analysis hat on really quick, but I think this is, again, just him needing to come to terms with his own mortality, his own death, and just embracing this kind of new existence that he will ultimately undergo as the champion of the Raven Queen eventually. A lot of mumbo jumbo here, but I appreciate y'all, bearing with me as I ramble. But I think this is just a really cool artistic license to show the transition between, what Vax was and maybe still is, and what he is ultimately going to be. And those of you that have seen the campaign know more about.
If you know, you know.
That. One
If
final
you know,
piece
you
of
know.
this that I forgot to mention is we also see Vax being unable to take off the Deathwalker's ward. That did not happen in the campaign. He was able to don and doff it whenever he wanted. But I think this is just playing into this whole theme of what I was just talking about in the last segment, of him needing to come to grips with this new reality, this deal that he's made.
Yeah.
And until he does so, I don't think he's going to be able to take the armor off.
It's not
That
reversible.
being said, I don't know if there will be some moment where, he's fully embraced and accepted it, and he is able to take the armor off then. I don't know if that's like an important moment to include in the show. But until then, it does beg the question, how's our boy going to the bathroom? All right, there's a couple of things to talk about in this next scene. First up, I love that we have Scanlan completely exhausted and out of breath as he's climbing up these rocks, because he's a gnome. And, in this party of varying races, it's going to be much harder for the smaller gnomes to keep up with, the half-elves and the Goliath. So just love that they're paying attention to that type of detail. Next, we have Vex pulling out the broom in order to get Scanlan to inspect the magic words on it. And we get our answer to what this little haversack is that we've been wondering about. It is a mini bag of holding. It could even be the bag of colding, which Vox Machina had, which all that is a refrigerated bag of holding. I don't think that this is it, because why would she be keeping the broom there? So I think this is just
another bag.
A haversack, a miniature bag of holding. And now we move on to him saying Volantir, the magic word. Now, I looked this up to see if it, meant anything, and all I could find were like autocorrects for the word volunteer in various languages. So if this word means anything to anybody, definitely let me know in the comments. But the Easter egg here, and let me give a quick threat level midnight for campaign 1 and 2, kind of. So you're warned. The Easter egg here is one of the words Vex says when she's trying to guess what the word is Viridian. And Viridian is the name by which Keylith's mother is going by in campaign 2. So I thought that was a fun little shout out, especially since, we got introduced to Keylith's mother.
That's right.
Now, I won't say further than that, to keep a lid on the spoilers for anybody that continued to watch even when they don't know what I'm talking about. So we'll leave it there. Next up, we've got Keylith Wild Shaping, and I just wanted to quickly comment on this if you weren't familiar with D&D or if you didn't see the original campaign, that Keylith is not limited to just like one type of bird, like the one we saw earlier this season. This bird she's transforming into here is different. It's smaller and faster for the purposes of what she needs. And how it works in D&D is you can transform into any animal that you've seen before. Now, there are some rules and limitations to this, but we're not going to get into it here. And I just thought it was cool that they're showcasing this. You know, they could have easily just used the same bird model from earlier, but they didn't. And when she arrives, she saves this little Ashari girl. And the Easter egg here is this is voiced by Amy Carrero, who was a guest on Critical Role. Well, she was on Critical Role Exandria Unlimited. She has not been on the Critical Role flagship show. But she also screams mother, which I don't really think this is an intended Easter egg, but I'm still going to shout it out for those of you that know. There's this kind of recurring bit between Amy and Liam O'Brien where they are Mother and Nancy. Now, Amy is actually Mother, so the fact that her character screams out Mother doesn't even really make sense for this to be an Easter egg, but I still wanted to point it out. Next up, we have Keylith running into her father and seeing Serkonos, the leader of the Fire Ashari. Now, he is actually played by Robbie Damon, another fan favorite guest character on Critical Role. He was in Exandria Unlimited with Amy Carrero, but he has also been in the main Critical Role campaign. So it's awesome to see him be a part
Longest
of the show.
running guest star
Now,
they've ever had.
The show and the campaign diverge a little bit here, and I'll try to be brief. But in the original campaign, Keylith and Vox Machina have come to the Fire Ashari before this moment, and Keylith actually completes her Oramente, at least the Fire Ashari portion of her Oramente, and then, you know, leaves, and then they come back later in this moment during the Chroma Conclave arc. So I really think it makes a lot of sense that they have just combined that for the show. Because if they hadn't, then her Fire Ashari Oramente would have happened off screen, which isn't interesting. And the fact that, you know, she comes and saves them by closing this portal is just a way more epic and interesting way to complete the, you know, quote unquote trial for her Oramente. She's like really proving herself. So in the campaign, it was just like they had to fight some fire elementals. So this is way more epic. So I really like that they've kind of converged that here. And I'll speak a little bit more on, you know, her completing this toward the end of the episode when it actually happens, but figured we would go ahead and mention it there. And I like the detail that on Serkonos' chest is seemingly a tattoo of a phoenix, which, you know,
that's what I thought.
Fire Ashari, phoenix.
Yep, makes
Cool
sense.
detail. Also, he's missing his arm, if you didn't notice, which also happened in the campaign. Next up, we get the return of Kima and Allura, and it was so good to see them. If you saw the original campaign, then you knew they weren't actually dead. And things have been shifted around. I'm not going to get into the weeds on exactly what's changed, but I've been wondering when they would show up again. So it's fun to see them here. And we also get the flashback of their original battle with Thordak. Now, I very briefly mentioned this in my first episode breakdown when I was talking about what I called the Ember Seed in Thordak's chest, but here is the Soul Anchor, which is what they use to trap him in the elemental plane of fire. So we get this flashback and we get to see this original battle. And a fun potential Easter egg here is that we get to see Kima and Allura's adventuring party. And we know a little bit about them from various campaign materials. So it is very possible that these other characters on the screen are the other members of their party. Potentially Cyrus Caldrum, Dola Lorien, and Gin Talavesh. There is also Drake Thunderbrand, was part of their original party, but he was a dwarf, and I do not see any dwarfs in this shot.
Too
The
short.
other three that I just mentioned though, actually died during the fight with Thordak, so maybe this is them. Next up, we get a quick Easter egg as Corin and Keylith are walking toward the portal to close it. The little platform that they are standing on in the lava is actually the symbol for the Ashari people. Alrighty, a couple moments I want to touch on in this chaos before we move on, and mainly we get more foreshadowing between Grog, Pike, and Craven Edge. Now, if you haven't already seen all of the episodes that dropped this week, I'm not going to go further than that. Plus, I've already talked about it in previous breakdowns, so y'all know what I'm talking about. And they're doing such a good job in the show as a whole of planting these seeds for these developments and these moments that are going to pay off later.
Yeah, they are great at it.
You know, allow me to wax poetic on it right now, I guess. I commend them. Like this, they're turning hours and hours and hours of content that build up to these moments into, a strong narrative thread in a, 25-minute TV show that's going to end up being a couple hour long season, right? They're just doing it so well. And so I love this show. Anyway, also we get this moment, and this was from the trailer, so I'm sure everyone, picked up on it. But Percy is like, I am very flammable. And this is just funny because, he uses black powder, and that is explosive, which we kind of got a little hint at with Victor in the earlier episode. So I just love that joke.
The other fun part of that we learned by watching the cast watch along is that line wasn't originally in it. It was a pickup that Taliesin just threw in after they were watching the already animated show. So that's a Taliesin Jaffe last minute special, that line, and it makes it even funnier when you realize that, because it wasn't scripted. He just threw it in and they were like, that's great. Let's use that.
Moving on to here, we go to the climax of the episode where Keylith enters the portal and just goes Super Saiyan. This part was so awesome. And the music in this scene really kicked it up to that next level. Neil Cree did so well. Every episode has an amazing score, but this one really resonated with me. There's a few things to touch on here. First, when Keylith first enters the elemental plane of fire, she starts to catch fire, literally, and that's because in the elemental plane of fire, it's very hot, and you will start taking fire damage while you're there, unless you have prepared in various ways to deal with that. So her going from that to transforming into this fire elemental was so badass. The model they have for this is so awesome. I love that it still has the antlers, and transforming into an elemental is an ability that druids have in D&D, and it's something Keylith did in the campaign. But
regularly,
the way they showed this and the way they decided to, have her close the portal was just amazing. Truly hats off. So Keylith, blows everybody up, basically, closes the portal, and comes back out, and we have this moment where everyone is like, what the heck? And she's got the new DLC outfit on.
Yes.
I love that touch. And I will comment one more piece on this a little bit later, but we have Vax hand her staff back, and he did the exact same thing in season 1, so I like this little callback to that moment. All right, next up, we've got the Kima Allura kiss. Now, this is just a nice payoff. They were together in the campaign, and thus far in the show, in season 1 and 2, there's been some subtle, or maybe not so subtle, hints that this was the case. So it's just nice to have it, fully out there in the open.
Fully confirmed.
Also, I mentioned the little favor between Vex and Scanlan earlier, so I'm not going to go over that again. But to kind of cement that, we have Trinket peeing on Scanlan. And Scanlan and Trinket have a complicated relationship.
Yeah.
In the first campaign, they are not each other's biggest fan, so I like to see this fleshed out a little bit more. One thing I forgot to touch on in order was this moment with Keylith and Allura, where she says,
"We can certainly try."
That is an iconic line from the campaign, but don't take my word for it.
You can certainly try. 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 Yeah.
You can certainly try.
Y'all, I was so tempted to make this montage like 10 minutes long, but in service of getting the video out sometime this year, I decided to stop it there. But I hope you enjoyed
They
it.
probably said that a 1,000 times.
Kima and Allura, and I'm gonna throw up a threat level midnight again, just because this is quasi spoilers. It's really probably not worth it, but just being safe. So they're talking about Singorn and it having bounced out. Now, Singorn is where Vex and Vax's father are from, so that's why it elicits this reaction from Vex. Now, in the campaign, Singorn bounced out by teleporting to the Feywild, which, as we know from the end of episode 6, that parts of Vox Machina have now traveled to the Feywild. So looks like we're going to run into Singorn whilst there. And I'm excited to see that. There's some great moments, but maybe we'll touch a little bit more on this in the next episode's breakdown, or maybe next week's episodes in general. But nice little bit of foreshadowing. Next up, we have this scene where Serkonos is performing this ceremony to officially commend Keylith on passing the Fire Ashari portion of her Oramente. Now, earlier when she came out of the portal, I briefly mentioned her new clothes, but one other thing I wanted to touch on is that red gem that she now has in the center of her antler piece. This could be a nod to an item she received in the campaign when she completed her Fire Ashari Oramente, and that was the Sparkstone. Serkonos gave Keylith the Sparkstone after completing her Oramente, just as a token of, her accomplishment. And what it did is it added fire damage to some of her attacks moving forward. Obviously, she had the gem as soon as she came out of the fire plane, and Serkonos didn't give it to her, but it still could be a nod to that same item.
Also, Serkonos does give Vox Machina one final warning before they part ways, and that is that someone was disguised as an Ashari that came in and helped Thordak escape. So he is a proud card-carrying member of Larkin Watch, and we need to keep our eyes out. Finally, to end the episode, we get a glimpse of Western, and we can see how the Goliath herd has been subjugated and are currently bringing offerings to Umbrasyl. Now, this is setting up a bunch of stuff in the future. This herd is the same one that Grog is from. I won't say more than that, but we get our first glimpse at Zanror, played by Abu Bakr Salim. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Hell of a voice. They've done so good on these, deep
everyone is great.
So I'm excited to see more from him. And we also get another glimpse of Ripley, which I mentioned briefly in the last episode. Her heading to Western at this moment is separate from what happened in the campaign. I will touch on this a little bit more at the end of next episode. I know I mentioned that last time, but bear with me. But basically what this is they're just converging two storylines to make it more seamless. And I think that's a great change. But, we have her making some sort of offering to Umbrasyl, which we know she was spying on Vox Machina in last episode. So clearly she is trading information here. Alrighty, y'all, just one more thing to touch on this episode, but before I do, let me give the quick YouTube spiel, even though I probably don't even need to with how much love you guys have been showing these videos. Thank you so much. But if you enjoyed it, drop a like, leave me a comment, let me know what I missed or what you enjoyed. And if you really like this content, consider giving us a subscribe. It really means a lot. And a special shout out to Lisa Colliet. Hopefully I'm saying that right. But while I was editing this video, I got the notification that we received a super thanks. I didn't even know what that was. But Lisa, thank you for being our first ever super thanks on the channel. I wanted to give you a special shout out. I really appreciate it. And other than that, y'all, don't forget, if you're a Critical Role fan, we also cover Critical Role Campaign 3, which is their current game that is ongoing. It just picked back up this last Thursday. We do a podcast every week discussing each episode and kind of diving into our theories and, just having a deep discussion on it. So that sounds something up your alley. Definitely check it out. We're on all podcast platforms and, of course, YouTube. Alrighty. That being said, let me dive into the last thing here. This episode is called Pass Through Fire for pretty obvious reasons, but this title was also inspired by the title of a campaign episode, Passed Through Fire. Now, without getting too much in the weeds on the differences between that episode and what's going on here, let me just say that the contents of that episode had nothing to do with what we saw in the show here. Like I mentioned in the show, they changed Keylith's Oramente to be this same moment. And so this Passed Through Fire episode actually comes later in the campaign. But the title is still referring to Keylith and kind of her going through, trials and tribulations and coming out the other side stronger. So if you didn't see the original campaign, this clip's not going to mean that much to you because it doesn't deal with what we saw in this episode. But I still wanted to share it because it's so good. And of course, those of you that saw the original campaign, I know you'll appreciate it. So I'm going to end the video with the clip. And just for a little context, if you didn't see the original campaign, this is a letter written by Patrick Rothfuss.
Oh,
guest character on
right.
and he is writing to Keylith. So Enjoy, y'all, and I'll see you in the next one.
Oh, before I forget, this came for you, Keylith.
What
Letter
now?
came?
A letter?
Letters. We got letters.
We had traders came in, parcel in your name. Don't know who it's from.
What did they look like?
How did they get through the invisible wall?
How did they know my name?
I don't know. They were sent from Western, I think it was.
Oh shit. Open that.
What is it? It's got something thick in it, which wasn't.
Could be a seal.
Oh, gee.
Read the letter first.
Read the letter first.
It's in Marquesian.
It's long.
There's beauty pictures in it.
Keylith, I write to let you and your companions know that the repair of Western is proceeding well. I will not bore you with the details. Suffice to say that our children are well fed and safe, our elderly and infirm are cared for and comfortable. Without the help of you and yours, this would not be the case. The folk in charge argue constantly, but that is to be expected. And
Whose
it is
voice
no
is
bad
that?
thing. They all want.
So Patrick Rothfuss is a fairly famous science fiction fantasy writer, and he played a guest character on the show. And I don't believe we will see this character in Legends of Vox Machina, but he was just a character that was in Western.
I see.
And they like worked with him while they were attempting to free Western from the dragons.
I see.
And this is much, much, much later in the campaign. And now this is a letter that character wrote to the party.
I see.
And the cool part is that he recorded it with his own voice.
I know, it's
which
pretty
is
cool.
really neat.
The same good things in different ways. I listen mostly and do what I can to make sure that they listen to each other. Without listening, nothing good can happen. The town, when I say the repair is going well, it is a hard thing for me to talk about. I am not a particularly clever man, and much of this is new to me. When you make a mistake with metal, you can melt things down and start afresh. It is irritating, and it costs in time and soot and sweat, but it can be done. There's a comfort in iron, knowing that a fresh start is always possible. But a city is not a sword. It is a living thing, and living things defy simple fixing. Roots cannot be reforged, they scar, and broken branches must be cut and sealed with tar, and this makes me angry, as it always has, and my anger has no place to go. It was easier when I was young. I could use my anger like a hammer against the world. I was so sure of myself and my friends and my rightness. I would hammer at the world, and breaking felt like making to me, and I was good at it. And while I was not wrong, neither was I entirely right. Nothing is simple. I do not work in wood. I am not brave enough for that. There is a comfort in iron, a promise of safety, a second chance if mistakes are made. But a city is more a forest than a sword. No, it
Is she
needs
crying?
more tending than that. Perhaps a city is like a garden then. So these days it seems I have become a gardener. I dig foundations in the earth. I sow rows of houses. I plan and plant. I watch the skies for rain and ruin. I cannot help but think that you would be better at this. But circumstance has put both of us in our own odd place.
I'm
You are
laughing at
forced to
his
be a
cup.
hammer in the world, and my ungentle hands are learning how to tend a plot of land. We must do what we can do. Did you know that there are some seeds that cannot
That's a
sprout
long
unless
ass
they
letter.
are first burned?
That's a
friend once told
long
me.
letter.
She was
Yep.
a bookish sort. I think of gardening constantly these days. I wear your gift, and I think of you. And I think it is interesting that there are some living things that need to pass through fire before they flourish.
He's crying too.
I ramble. You have the heart of a gardener, and because of this, you think of consequence, and your current path pains you. I am not wise, and I do not give advice, but I have come to know a few things. Sometimes breaking is making. Even iron can start again, and there are many things that move through fire and find themselves much better for it afterward. I have enclosed a gift. Once it was a sword, but it has changed. It is a small thing and silly. Please forgive an old man for his foolishness. Still, I hope it brings you some small comfort. Kindly, Care.
Holy shit.
She's crying.
What's the thing?
I don't know what to say.
Are you all right?
It's Care.
Is he proposing to you?
It's got branches on it.
It's quite beautiful.
Wow.
Does it say something?
I have passed through fire.
Wow. Motherfucker, that's cool.
Laura Bailey.
It went from serious to like, okay.
Yep, Laura Bailey always knows how to bring the mood. Yeah. Well, thank you, Will, for all of those breakdowns. I have to say, because I'm such a big fan of the campaign, my favorite part was that last little clip, because it reminded me of the time that they had with Patrick Rothfuss and how cool he was. It must have been amazing to have a writer of his caliber joining them and playing around. But what did you like?
On the Easter eggs?
Yeah.
Good questions. Because we've done this one many months ago.
Right.
I like when he revealed a little bit more on Keylith. You know, how the person, how like when she was it turned into a phoenix.
Right.
The shapeness and also the music that they played. I forgot about the music too.
Right.
Because we're so focused on her mortifying to a different character.
Right. Yeah, that was some epic music in there. Yeah, so thank you, Will. We appreciate you. If you guys are not already subscribed to the Pixelists, you should check them out. Definitely give them a follow, because they are severely underrated for the quality of content that they put out.
And they are such a great
personal friends of the channel.
Yeah.
And we really enjoy them.
Yeah. And just don't forget to give your love to them. And it's great people to work with. And also, thank you again for your love and support to our channel. We are so grateful and thankful for your recommendations and your suggestions, and also your likes and, subbing to our channel. We really appreciate you guys. Thank you again, and see you in the next video.